Erling Haaland has one of the strongest mindsets in sports, and in this clip you can see why.
Do I want to do this? No. I don't. Will I do it? Yeah. Am I doing it? Yeah. Because why not? It's good for my body. It's good for my mind. I feel I'm tired, but then I tell my body I'm not tired. And then I think it's a psychological thing that telling yourself, okay, I'm not so tired. It's okay. We keep going.
That sentence is easy to admire, but it's also very easy to misuse. Not because Haaland is wrong, because he may be right in a way you cannot copy. You hear, I tell my body I'm not tired, and your brain translates it into something much simpler. Push harder, ignore the signal, your body is lying. And that's the harmful grinder mindset dressed up as discipline, and it can wreck you. So the real question is not whether mindset matters. It does. The question is this: when should you challenge your body, and when does challenging your body become the exact thing that breaks you? Because the same sentence can unlock one athlete and destroy someone else. So what is the difference? Let's start with what Haaland actually does. He talks to himself. Self-talk means the short phrases you say to yourself during effort, and that sounds almost too simple to study. But researchers have tested it directly. They took recreationally trained participants and had them cycle at a fixed high intensity until exhaustion. Time to exhaustion means how long you can continue before you can no longer keep up the required pace. Everyone did the test once. Then the researchers split them into two groups. One group trained normally. The other group practiced motivational self-talk for 2 weeks. Simple phrases: drive forward, you're doing well, push through this. Then everyone did the cycling test again. The self-talk group lasted longer. They went from about 637 seconds to about 750. So roughly 18% longer, which is not nothing. The control group did not improve. They went from about 486 seconds to about 474. But the more important part is not the time. It is the feeling. Halfway through the same relative effort, the self-talk group rated the exercise as easier. Same kind of task, lower perceived effort, longer performance. Someone might say, so mindset really is everything. No, that is already too big. The study does not prove that you can talk your way through anything. And anyways, one study never proves anything. But it shows something narrow and useful. Under the right conditions, words can make the same effort feel more manageable. That's quite powerful, yet it's smaller than the internet wants it to be. Fatigue feels like a measurement. You feel tired, and it seems like your body has checked the fuel tank and reported the truth. Empty. Done. Stop. But fatigue is not a battery percentage. Fatigue works more like a protective signal. Your body sends information upward. Breathing, heart rate, muscle strain, pain, heat, stress. And your brain takes all that information and asks, how much will the next effort cost? How much does the goal matter? And how much risk can this body take right now? And then it gives you a feeling. I'm done. That does not mean fatigue is fake. It just means fatigue is not just chemistry. It is chemistry interpreted in context. That is why self-talk can actually matter. It does not create energy from nothing. It changes how effort gets framed. Science says that self-talk can make effort feel more manageable. The internet tries to phrase it as, your limits are fake. While science says that context matters, the internet says pain proves character. That's not translation, that's just mutation of the findings. Here's where the internet does what it always does. It takes a tool and turns it into an identity. A tool tells you what to do in a specific situation, while an ideology tells you who you are allowed to be. The harmful grinder mindset does exactly that. It takes a self-regulation strategy and turns it into self-abandonment. Rest becomes weakness, pain becomes proof of character, exhaustion becomes a moral test, stopping becomes failure. Which sounds intense until your body sends the invoice. I know that sounds a little dramatic, but I made this mistake myself. I once ran a half marathon and wanted to finish in under 2 hours. I had trained terribly, but I really wanted it. And I did it. At kilometer 18, I got cold, then I started shivering, and that's not usually a motivational message from your body. It's more really a warning light, but I pushed through it anyways, and I got it under 2 hours. I crossed the line, and then I started hyperventilating for about 10 minutes or so. I finally got my pulse under control, I felt fine, went home, and then I spent the night with shivers, fever, and even vomiting. and that lasted for 3 days. My average pulse during the race was around 190. And seriously, that's not impressive, it's just plain stupid. And my point is not, look how disciplined I was. I wasn't. I didn't exercise enough. The point is, I knew how to override my body, but I did not know how to read it. So what does Haaland have that I did not? Training facility, GPS vest data, laptop, dashboards, physio table, recovery rooms.
We need to get the pulse up to 150 at least.
Haaland does not just grind. He grinds inside a system built to make grinding survivable. Coaches, medical staff, physiotherapists, recovery, protocols, nutrition plans, sleep tracking, load monitoring, all of that. He even has people whose job it is to track how much stress his body can absorb before performance turns into damage. And that is the part self-help content removes. It sells you the athlete slogan, but it cuts out the athlete's system. And that changes everything. Elite athletes do not simply override their bodies. They override their bodies inside an environment where other people can pull the emergency brake. Someone watches the data, someone checks the injury risk, someone can say, no, not today. You need recovery. And that's not weakness. That is the infrastructure that makes intensity possible at new levels. Take away the infrastructure and push harder stops being a performance psychology. It becomes self-abandonment with better branding. So does that mean you should never push? No, not at all. That would be just too simple and plainly wrong. This is the part motivational content almost never understands. The same advice can help one person and harm another. Maybe you stop too early. Maybe you avoid effort. Maybe you treat every uncomfortable feeling as danger. Might be. Then self-talk can help you. Keep going. One more. This is hard, not harmful. And that can open a door. But maybe you have the opposite problem. You do not stop too early. You stop too late. You override hunger. You override pain. You override sleep. And you override sadness. You override every single warning until your body has to scream. Then the next step is not another sprint. It is recovery. For someone with severe depression, the next rep might be sitting up in bed. For someone in burnout, the next rep might be doing less without treating rest like moral failure. That is not lowering the standard. Sometimes it is the only way action becomes possible again. In performance, the problem often looks like unused capacity. You have more available than you currently access. So the intervention raises the bar. Push here. Commit here, stay with the discomfort. But in clinical life, the problem often looks different. You have already demanded too much from a depleted system. So the intervention lowers the bar. Not because you're weak, because the bar has been set so high for so long that it no longer creates movement. It creates paralysis. One version of you needs to learn. I can handle more than I think. Another version needs to learn. I have handled too much for too long. And those are not the same lesson. And most mindset content cannot tell which one you need. So how do you tell? And the answer is not always trust your body. Your body can be overprotective and it can mistake discomfort for danger. It can ask you to stop before you need to stop. But the answer is also not always ignore your body. Your body can tell you the truth. It can warn you about injury. It can show you depletion. It can tell you that your current system cannot support what you keep demanding from it. So do not obey, but also do not ignore. When you hit the wall, ask better questions. What kind of signal is this? Is it discomfort, boredom, fear, normal effort? Then self-talk might actually help. I'm tired, but I can continue. This is hard, not harmful. One more step. But ask the second question too. Is this injury, illness, sleep debt, long-term depletion, or even a burnout? Then pushing through is not discipline. It is bad data interpretation. And ask one more question. What supports this push? Recovery, training, sleep, food, medical care? Someone who can tell you to stop? Because intensity without support does not make you elite. It makes you fragile. Your body is not always right, but it is never irrelevant. Which brings us back to Haaland.
If you tell yourself, I'm not that tired, it's okay. You're not that tired. Simple as that.
He's not giving you a universal rule. He is showing you a performance strategy inside a performance system. A clear goal, a trained body, a monitored workload, a recovery structure, and a medical team. A competitive context where the cost of pushing makes sense. Inside that world, the sentence can work beautifully, but strip away the context and the same sentence changes meaning. It stops meaning, I can access more than I think, and it starts meaning, I must ignore myself to deserve respect. And that's the lie. Not that mindset matters. Mindset does matter. The lie is that mindset works the same way for everybody in every context under every condition. And it does not.
You need to find what's right for you because everyone is different.
Real psychological literacy is not always push harder. It is knowing when effort is growth and when effort is damage. Mindset can matter, but without context, mindset is just a highly optimized way to hurt yourself.